The Tennessee Titans signed Jamal Adams last week, and he may be a recognizable name, but he should not be the starter. I'll explain why on today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast.
You are Locked On Titans, your daily Tennessee Titans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Titans podcast. I am your host, Tyler Rowland. Titans fans, today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. The Tennessee Titans added Jamal Adams, but he should not be the starter. I'm going to explain why, plus go over Jamal Adams' contract details, which came out over the weekend. Also, we're going to preview the entire safety position on today's show and continue our positional preview series. I'm going to give you my locks, which obviously includes Jamal Adams, give you guys on the roster bubble and some long shots as well, but we'll look at some other safeties still available on the market because I still think the Titans may need to add one. Before we get into all of that, though, do want to thank you for making the Locked On Titans podcast your first listen each and every day. Remember, Monday through Friday, Tennessee Titans content all year round, always for free. You're not going to beat that anywhere else. Make sure that you get subscribed, stay subscribed. It's your team every day. And speaking of every day, shout out to my everydayers out there tuning in Monday through Friday. If you aren't an everydayer, you need to be one because training camp is next week. The football is almost here, and I'm going to be breaking down the rest of the defensive positions during this week of the show. We're going to do cornerback tomorrow. We'll hit edge, linebacker, the interior defensive line at the end of the week. Last week, we covered all the offensive positions. So if you missed any of that, make sure that you go back and check that out. But again, my overarching point here is I do not think that Jamal Adams needs to start. And the reality is he wasn't paid like a guy who needs to start. So we got the contract details for Jamal Adams' contract over the weekend from Aaron Wilson. 1 year, $1.2 million. That's it. It's a veteran minimum contract. The cap hit in terms of how it affects the Tennessee Titans salary cap is $1.125 million. So very little cost on this deal. But here's the reality. If you listen to my reaction show last week after Jamal Adams' news broke, this was the expectation. I saw a lot of reaction of, oh, well, this money makes me feel completely different. Oh, now that we know the Titans paid so little, I feel differently about the signing. I guess I don't understand that line of thought. And this detail of the contract doesn't make me feel any different about the signing of Jamal Adams because this was the expectation all along. Again, I talked about this last week when the news broke. This was going to be a 1-year veteran minimum deal. And I guess I'm a bit shocked by people who are shocked to find that out. Wasn't that the expectation all along, is that this was a vet minimum deal? The reality is people hear the name Jamal Adams and a lot of fans think of, the Jamal Adams that was an all-pro with the Jets. That is not who Jamal Adams is right now. There is a reason that he got a 1-year veteran minimum contract as a 28-year-old, 3-time former All-Pro. There's a reason for that. He's not a very good player right now, and he hasn't been able to stay healthy. So I guess the contract is exactly what I expected, and I'm a little confused by people who expected it to be anything different than a 1-year veteran minimum deal. But again, it doesn't really change my view on the signing. I see a lot of people call this a low-risk, high-reward signing, whether it's in my comments, other people who cover the team, fans in general. Oh, this is a low-risk, high-reward signing. Well, I fundamentally disagree with that. I think this is a low-risk, low-reward signing. That's what this is. This is, hey, you're not taking a lot of risk. It's only a 1-year deal. It's veteran minimum. If things get too bad, I guess in theory you could always cut him. But at the end of the day, even if Jamal Adams, this is my number one point. I saw somebody online call him the Titans could be getting a premium talent. No, they can't. Again, this is not high reward. He is not a premium talent. That is not in there. There is no outcome of this signing where the Titans get a premium talent. That's not what this is. Now, there is a way that the Jamal Adams signing is a good signing, and he's good, cheap depth, as a third safety, as a dime linebacker, as a sub-package player who can blitz and attack the quarterback and get downhill and be aggressive and be a tone setter in the defense. Like, there is an avenue for this signing to be a good signing. It doesn't have to be premium talent or high reward. Like, this could just be a low-level, good depth signing. To me, that is the best possible outcome. The ceiling of this signing is Jamal Adams just being a good, solid role player for the Titans in specific situations on defense. You know what I mean? So I guess that's just my view of it. The contract doesn't really change that. Even if Jamal Adams plays well for the Titans, they aren't getting a premium player, a Pro Bowl player, a difference maker. He could just be nice, solid depth for the team, and I think that's what you have to hope for. So obviously, Jamal Adams is a lock to make this roster. They wouldn't bring him in right now, right before training camp starts, if he wasn't a lock to make the roster. I mean, I think Jamal Adams has definitely cemented the connection with Denard Wilson, the connection with Rand Carthon. I think it makes all the sense in the world for them to keep him around. I don't think they would be bringing him in if they didn't plan to keep him through training camp and onto the regular roster. So I think Jamal Adams is a lock to make the roster. The other two locks are obvious. You have Elijah Molden and Amani Hooker. And we know that Amani Hooker is going to be the starter, at least one of the starters. But who is starting opposite of him? As I said at the beginning of the show, I don't think Jamal Adams should be the starter. I think it should be Elijah Molden. I think Elijah Molden is a better football player right now. I think Elijah Molden is better in coverage right now as well. And Jamal Adams, again, can be that third down sub-package linebacker, play in the box, get downhill. Basically, Jamal Adams is going to be a linebacker, but in passing situations. That's my idea of the role that he should play. Now, I've also seen some conversation about, well, who's going to play free safety? The Titans don't have a center fielder. The Titans don't have that back deep rover, rangy safety to play in the back end. Yes, they do. His name is Amani Hooker. Amani Hooker needs to be the free safety. And now Elijah Molden can function as a strong safety. Jamal Adams can rotate in a little bit at strong safety in certain situations, very rarely, and then of course be that sub-package linebacker in passing situations. So to me, Amani Hooker, when he was at his best, if you go back and look at Amani Hooker's best years with the Titans that earned him that contract, when he got 4 interceptions and was all over the field, the play he made against the Bengals in the playoffs, Amani Hooker is at his best when he is a deep, rangy free safety. That is what Amani Hooker does best. In recent years, the Titans haven't had good enough players to play man coverage on all of the options. So Amani Hooker was having to play in the box and play man coverage on tight ends or play man coverage on slot wide receivers in the red zone. And Amani Hooker was being used as more of a strong safety, more of a slot cornerback at times for the Titans. So now Amani Hooker can do what he does best and play that back-end roaming free safety to read the quarterback's eyes and drive on the ball and make interceptions and create turnovers. That's what Amani Hooker does best. So I feel like Titans fans who are out there saying they need a free safety, they need a center fielder, that's what Amani Hooker actually does best. And we heard from Amani Hooker recently in an interview basically saying the Titans, this new defense is going to allow me to do what I do best. Now, he didn't go into the schematic details of what he does best, but I am here to tell you as someone who breaks down the film and has been breaking down Amani Hooker's film since he came into the league, that what he does best is be a rangy coverage guy at the back end of the defense to break on throws and make interceptions. So the Titans have their free safety in Amani Hooker. Now he can actually do that with Elijah Molden and Jamal Adams. Obviously, those three are locks to make this team, but the Titans still may need a safety, in my opinion. I'll explain why and give you the options that are still available here in just a moment. Before I do, though, do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Look, guys, it's summertime. It is time to go to some Major League Baseball games. My Cincinnati Reds are an absolutely fun team to watch. Reese Hines has been on a tear, and I would love to get to a ball game. If you guys feel like me, the best place to get your tickets for those ball games is on Game Time. Look, you get the best features in the industry. You get a view. Literally, they show you a view from your seat on the app, so you know what you're going to look at when you sit down. You get all-in prices, like the price that you see for your tickets. It's actually what you're going to pay for your tickets when you go to check out, which if you buy tickets a lot like I do, you know that that's incredibly uncommon. You also get the Game Time guarantee. If you find a better price for tickets in the same section and row for cheaper, they're going to give you 110% of the difference as a credit. Game Time puts their money where their mouth is, so make sure you take the guesswork out of buying tickets for the MLB with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNFL. That's LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Titans fans, let's continue today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast. We are breaking down the safety position as we head towards Tennessee Titans training camp. I just talked about Jamal Adams and why I don't think he should start over Elijah Molden, but I also talked about the roles I expect all three of those guys to play and why it's important that Amani Hooker now gets to do what he does best. But if the Titans did want to add another safety, there are still a couple of options available. We've talked about some of these options in the past, but in my opinion, the Tennessee Titans do still need another coverage-centric safety. So I'm going to go over those options. Before I do, thank you again for making the Locked On Titans podcast your first listen each and every day, Monday through Friday, Tennessee Titans content all year round, always for free. Make sure that you get subscribed, stay subscribed. Again, it's your team every day. Do also want to let you guys know that tomorrow I'm going to be breaking down the cornerback position for the Titans as part of our positional preview series, and I am pairing that with a brand new film breakdown from the Tic Tac Titans film channel on YouTube. The link to that film channel is down below in the description. Click on that. Get subscribed to my film channel if you haven't. Roger McCreary film breakdown coming Tuesday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern time. I'm going to have 5 days a week of film content during the season as well. So I'm going to do Roger McCreary this week. I think I'm going to do Harold Landry next week. Little Traylon Burks in a couple of weeks. Might hit Otis Reese here soon as well. So I'm going to have a ton of film content headed towards the regular season with absolutely foot on the pedal of the gas for film content when the regular season kicks off. So excited about the channel. I think I put out some good videos already. I hope you guys will check that out on Tuesday morning and give that channel a subscribe as well. But with that being said, the Titans still need a safety, in my opinion. This Jamal Adams signing didn't really change my view of what the Tennessee Titans need. So to me, Elijah Molden is a little more coverage adept than Jamal Adams at this stage, but Elijah Molden isn't some coverage maverick or anything like that. Elijah Molden is basically last year, Elijah Molden played the role that I expect Jamal Adams to play this year. So Elijah Molden is a guy who's been used as that sub-package linebacker, as that dime linebacker, as that early down slot cornerback. Elijah Molden has been used as a box safety, as a close to the line of scrimmage guy in passing situations. That's what he's mostly been used as in the last 2 years. His first year, he was the early down slot cornerback. But after that transition to safety, he's been more of that dime linebacker. He's been used a little bit in the back end as well as the third safety for the Titans behind Kevin Byard, behind Amani Hooker last season. So Elijah Molden isn't a guy, in my opinion, who is like a very good coverage player. Like the Titans have Amani Hooker as that back end free safety. They can have Elijah Molden as their strong safety. They can have Jamal Adams as that third safety who's the box linebacker in passing situations. They can do that, but that still doesn't, like, I still don't think that they have two starting level safeties. I think Elijah Molden should start over Jamal Adams, but I don't think Elijah Molden is a starting level safety in the NFL, in my opinion. And if he is, it's very, very low end. So I think the Titans could still stand to add a free agent safety, and they still have $22-23 million of cap space to do that. So they certainly could. And the best option available remains Justin Simmons. I mean, we've talked about Justin Simmons all summer long. That's who I wanted the Titans to get. And look, I'm not going to be like, oh, they didn't go out and get Justin Simmons, so I don't like what's going on. No, I told you guys before they added anybody that I wouldn't have been happy if they added Jamal Adams. So I'm not going to change my tune just because they did. That's one thing that I see a lot of people do online is, and some people who cover the team, they'll say like, oh, I wouldn't want this player. And then the Titans get the player, and then they totally change. And now they're like, oh, he could be good. Oh, I like the signing, blah, blah. To me, That is the definition of inconsistency. So I'm never going to say, I don't like this player, blah, 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 and then the Titans sign him, and then I totally change my tune on it. Like, I'm not going to do that to you guys. I didn't do that with Sweat. I didn't do it with Adams. That's not what I'm going to do. But the point is that I still think the Titans should add a safety, and they still have the money to do it, and Justin Simmons is still available. So why not? The problem is, I don't think that they will sign another safety. I think the Titans are fine with. I think this was the safety signing that we were all waiting on. I do not think the Titans are going to go out and sign another safety as well. I don't think that's happening. I really don't. But if I'm wrong, which I hope I am, the Titans could still get Justin Simmons. The problem is Simmons has said multiple times this offseason he wants to compete for a Super Bowl. He wants to play for a contender. And you, me, and Tom, Dick, and Harry down the street can all think that the Titans are going to be very good this year. But I think it's fair to understand if Justin Simmons doesn't see the Titans as a Super Bowl contender. Like, I think that's fair. You know what I mean? I can't blame the guy if he would look at us sideways for thinking that. Okay, so that makes it very unlikely that Justin Simmons would want to sign with the Titans, even if the Titans wanted to sign Justin Simmons anyway. So you move down the board. Who else could be available? The next name to me is Quandre Diggs. Nino Diggs. Played for Seattle, one of the most tenured veterans on the market right now. Has played a ton of years in the NFL. He's actually played more snaps than Kevin Byard. That's how many snaps Diggs has played. But Quandre Diggs for Seattle was that back-end safety. So if I'm wrong about my view of Amani Hooker, and the Titans still do actually want that deep free safety in the back end, then Quandre Diggs would be a good option. And I think if you had Jamal Adams as your third down linebacker, and then you had Amani Hooker as your strong safety, and then you had Quandre Diggs as a free safety in passing situations to play that center field back deep, that would work. That would be a possibility as well. So I think Quandre Diggs would make some sense. But again, he's an older player. What does he have in the tank? Does he fit the Titans system? I think all of those answers are maybe at best. Also worth noting that Quandre Diggs did give Jamal Adams a big shout out online after he got signed by the Titans. So maybe they're close, and maybe that greases the skids for the Titans to bring in Quandre Diggs. Again, I still think they need another safety here. And the last option I want to talk about is Eddie Jackson. Played for Chicago Bears for a long time. He's more of a versatile do-it-all safety, but he's been really great at creating turnovers throughout his career. He's only 30 years old. I think that Eddie Jackson could be another complimentary piece. And I think that Eddie Jackson is a better player than Elijah Molden and a better player than Jamal Adams. So he would instantly become like a starting safety. And then him and Amani Hooker both are very versatile safeties who can kind of do a little bit of everything. And you could use them in that way. So I think that would make sense. But I mean, other than Justin Simmons, who I think is an incredible long shot, other than Quandre Diggs and Eddie Jackson, there really are no other safeties that I think would move the needle in any way for the Titans. So it wouldn't really make sense to waste that money on those players. But overall, again, I don't think the Titans are going to bring in another safety. I think Jamal Adams was the signing safety that we were all waiting for, but I wish they would. You know what I mean? I wish they would bring in another one. If they don't want to pay the money for Justin Simmons, I understand. But a guy like Quandre Diggs, a guy like Eddie Jackson, they're not going to cost a lot either. They're going to be, $3 million, $4 million, maybe even $2 million at maximum. So I don't think it would break the bank, whereas Justin Simmons is probably looking for $8 to $10 million, something like that. You know what I mean? So if they wanted to go cheap but still add another body, I think Diggs or Jackson makes sense. But again, I do not think that they're going to be bringing in somebody else, which puts a lot of emphasis on who is the next safety after the top three of Hooker, Molden, and Adams. I'm going to go over who is also on the depth chart for the Titans and tell you my favorite option as a long shot for this team. So we'll get into that now. Before we do, though, do want to let you guys know that today's episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. All right, look, guys, comparison is the thief of joy, as they say. And I know it's really hard, but a lot of people tend to compare their lives to others, especially with social media. You see this person doing this person doing that. They got it all together, all that. Look, the reality is they probably don't. Their life is probably tipsy-turvy and up and down like all of ours is. And that's where therapy can help, because it can help you focus on what you want instead of what others have, so you can start living your best life instead of trying to compete with the Joneses. Look, if you're thinking of starting therapy, you need to give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online. It's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. All you do is fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. That's a really good feature. It's very important to have someone you feel comfortable with, and BetterHelp allows you to do that. So stop comparing and start focusing with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon and get 10% off your first month today. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. Titans fans, let's cap off today's positional preview of the safety position. We talked about Jamal Adams and why I don't think he should start, but him, Molden, and Hooker are locks to make the team. We talked about some safeties who are still available on the free agent market as well if the Titans do add a safety, although I'm not expecting it. But what about the other safeties on the Titans roster who will have an opportunity to step up? There's one undrafted free agent who I really have my eye on. Before I get into that, I do want to thank you again for making the Locked On Titans podcast your first listen each and every day. Also want to let you know Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. It's called Locked On Sports Today. It's 24/7 going over the biggest sports stories of the day. You get local experts from Locked On like me. You get coverage of every league from our national shows. Find Locked On Sports Today, now available on the free Fire TV channels app and, of course, here on YouTube. But with that being said, we have Hooker, we have Molden, we have Adams. The other players on the depth chart, we have Mike Brown, we have Matthew Jackson, and we have Shaheem Carter and Keaton Ellis. So I'm just going to go through these. I think all of these guys are on the bubble. There is no true long shot at safety because you have those three players, and I think the Titans could keep 4 safeties at minimum. We talked about this when we were doing offensive positions, about the roster math of, hey, if you keep this, you keep that. There aren't a lot of good safeties on the Titans roster. So that means that they may prioritize special teams and keep 7 wide receivers. Keep a guy like Hassan Haskins and keep 4 running backs. Instead of having a 5th safety who's a special teams player, you can get that special teams value from a depth player on offense. So I think that's all involved in the roster math because you don't have a lot of great options at safety. I do like Mike Brown. All right. I think Mike Brown would be Elijah Molden's direct backup right now. I think that Mike Brown would be at playing as a safety, not the role that we talked about. I think Mike Brown would be a better safety than Jamal Adams at this stage. Adams is just a more physical player who's probably going to be better in the box, which is going to be his role. But Mike Brown played in 9 games last year, had 7 tackles, had a pass breakup, almost had an interception. I reviewed every defensive snap for the Titans this year over the past few days, over the last week. Mike Brown made some good plays, man. He made some almost interceptions. Look, he's not going to be a guy who is ever going to be a quality starting level player. But in the Titans circumstances, with the lack of starting level talent that they have, I think keeping guys who are really good depth is going to be important. I think Mike Brown is that type of guy. Also worth noting, 149 special team snaps for the Titans last year. That was like over 60% of the snaps. So Mike Brown is a guy who can help on special teams. I think he's a quality backup for the Titans, and he would be my favorite right now to take that safety 4 spot, okay? But also Matthew Jackson. Teron Davenport from ESPN just did a really good article on Matthew Jackson, a little bit of a profile on him. You guys can check that out if you want. But Matthew Jackson was an undrafted free agent last year, and both Mike Brown and Matthew Jackson are bigger kind of safeties. I wouldn't say they're huge by any means, but they're both 6'1", over 200 pounds. So that could make sense for what the Titans are looking for. It looks like they're looking for more positional size these days. The Titans want to be a bigger football team. Matthew Jackson played in 10 games for the Titans last year, had 6 tackles, played 147 special team snaps, and those special team snaps are going to be so important. So I think Matthew Jackson could really make a push as well to make this team. And then finally, Shaheem Carter is the last veteran, the last returning player at safety that we're going to talk about. He only played in 3 games last year, had 3 tackles, 23 special team snaps. I just don't think Shaheem Carter is an NFL level player. I think he could be a practice squad level player for the Titans. I wouldn't mind having Carter on the practice squad, but if he makes the 53-man roster, I don't think that's a good sign. The guy I do want to talk about here before I go, though, is Keaton Ellis. He's an undrafted free agent from Penn State. Started out as a cornerback, got moved to safety because the coverage ability is hit or miss here. But he's 5'11", 190 pounds, a little bit undersized, but freak explosiveness. Great speed, 4.4, 40-yard dash, great vertical jump, really explosive. He set his pro day on fire, really impressive athlete. Played 58 games in his career at Penn State, 31 starts, had 89 tackles, 12 pass breakups, had 2 interceptions. Again, very fast, explosive player. He's a willing tackler, a guy who played on special teams coverage units, and that's how he's going to make his NFL career as well. But the coverage instincts are just not there. That's why he started as a cornerback and got moved to safety. Doesn't do a great job in man coverage. He's a bit undersized as well. So although he's a willing tackler, it's going to make it hard for him to be like in the box consistently because he's just an undersized guy. He also has short arms, which makes it hard for him to make plays on the ball and be a turnover machine. I think he's a guy who maybe the Titans could have as a direct backup to a Jamal Adams, a guy who may be a safety, but is more of a box guy, is more of a guy who can maybe play some slot overhang because he played a little bit of cornerback. I just think he is a guy who has great explosiveness. So if the Titans can coach him up and have his kind of mental ability in the game match his physical talents, I think they could have something there. And maybe they can improve those coverage instincts because the Titans aren't going to play a ton of man coverage where he struggled. They'll probably play a little bit more zone in the back end, especially at the safety position. So maybe they can use that speed to turn him into a deep free safety center fielder type guy. Be very interesting to see, but just the explosiveness, the ability, I might take a chance on that over some of these veterans like Mike Brown, Shaheem Carter, who maybe just don't have a ton of upside, even if they're better players right now. That's kind of the game that you got to play, right? Do I want to get this younger player in who has potential and develop him and see if I can make him better? Or do I want to go with these guys who are better right now, but just don't really have much potential left to get to? That's an interesting conversation, but that's the safety position. Again, tomorrow, I'm going to be breaking down the cornerback position, and I'm going to have a film breakdown on Roger McCreary on the Tic Tac Titans YouTube channel coming out at 8 a.m. on Tuesday morning. So make sure that you guys check that out. But with that being said, that is going to do it for me today, folks. As always, I am your host, Tyler Rowland, and this was Locked On Titans.